Hello, and welcome to this edition of the World Discord podcast. I am Joel Ostrow.
And I'm Brian Endless. How you doing today, Joel?
I'm all right. How are you, Brian?
Good, thank you. Excited to have this one on. We've been going back and forth for a couple days trying to get the timing right.
We sure have. The topic today, well, we're back to Ukraine, but today we're going to be focused on the carnage that is the war on Ukraine. Just for a little bit of background, despite what the Orange Monster in the White House says, there aren't millions and millions killed on both sides, although it is still a catastrophe that is really hard to get your arms around. On the Russian side, more than 800,000 have been killed or injured. Of those, the estimates are about 125,000 dead. On the Ukrainian side, the numbers are about 400,000 killed and injured, with about 40,000 of those, 45,000 killed. We're talking about military, not civilian. Like in most modern wars, the vast majority of the casualties are from blast effects, over 85%, according to the Institute for the Study of War. The kinds of injuries that soldiers are suffering: brain injuries, concussions, broken limbs, spinal injuries, and burn injuries. So, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce this wonderful and generous guest we have today.
Great, thanks, Joel. Our guest today is Rima Ziuraitus. We have known each other way too long. We're not going to admit the years, but Rima, we'd be dating both of ourselves. Rima's a former. I've known her since she was a student of mine many moons ago, originally from the U.S. And when I knew her for most of the time, I thought of you as a Lithuanian who is very into your culture. And whether it was Lithuanian dance or the big professional project you did for a while, a documentary, Game Changer, Lithuania's Nonviolent Revolution, you were doing very cool stuff on that country. And then all of a sudden, 2022 hit, and I saw a shift, and we really haven't talked much since then. So I'm happy to catch up today. Rimma went to Ukraine as a volunteer starting in 2022, worked with various NGOs, and later began her medic studies and enlisted in the Ukrainian military in 2024. She's now a medic in the armed forces. She's right in the middle of everything. And she's also a tactical medicine instructor. She works on medical evacs. We were delayed twice because she went out and had to evac people. So, we want to talk about it. But Rimma is a person who did what I heard a lot of people talk about when the Ukraine war started. She put her money and mouth and body where the action was and jumped into it to help people. And a lot of people I know talked about doing that and never really moved forward. So it's fascinating to hear someone who has really dedicated herself to this. I'm going to leave the happy introduction there, Rimma. And thank you first for joining us. We appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here, guys. Thanks so much for inviting me for the podcast. It's awesome.
Excellent. So, by the way, we don't do trigger warnings very often, but we told Rimma that we're going to talk about anything that comes up, and she deals with medical evacuations and is in the middle of a war zone. So beware as you're listening through it. All right, Rimma, first question. This is an easy, hard one. Why the hell are you in Ukraine?
Yeah.
So, honestly, like I graduated from college with a political science degree. So, and I always was leaning towards Eastern Europe anyway. Most of my papers, sorry, we're going to get a lot of traffic because I'm on a main road, but a lot of my studies were on Russian imperialistic tactics. That was really more my main focus. And also I'm Lithuanian by background. So we have, our own family scars with Russian occupation. So everything just kind of leads into it. So in 2014, there wasn't a whole lot I could do, like when Russia invaded Crimea, right? So we did a lot of advocacy on the Washington side, and I did some stuff with the Ukrainian community, but I kind of always kept my eye on it. Fast forward to the full scale invasion, and I just I think it's just, I woke up and I was like, no, I can't sit at home and do nothing. This is not going to work. Absolutely not. And so I was still working in corporate finance, and we were still kind of like in that weird gray area where you didn't have to go to work every day because of COVID. Like you could work from
Right.
home. So I would essentially get all my work done and then go straight to all the like different Ukrainian orgs, Rotary,
Yeah.
whoever was packing humanitarian aid that day. I would be in their warehouse for like 12 hours just packing stuff. And then I got the offer to manage a small NGO, Blue Yellow USA. They're a 501c3 nonprofit based out of Chicago. So I got that offer and I took it. So I ran the NGO for a year, and I was in and out of Ukraine starting in September of 22. So there's really nothing quite like my first trip, where it was 4 crazy days where we did not stop. We drove from Kyiv all the way to Kharkiv during the offensive. And then
Jeez.
also we're right on the front lines with, I believe it was the 95th Airborne, maybe. And so I'm sleeping in a 1-person tent and I'm listening to
Mm.
missiles just flying over my head. It was the craziest experience of my life. And I was sitting there and I'm just, and I still have the audio recording of the launches of the missiles, because I was like, I've never heard anything like this in my whole life. But you got to see firsthand what was happening. And like that was a driver for me, because it was not like this. Any person that's read anything about politics, geopolitics, the way that the world is working right now, would understand that what was happening in Ukraine is going to subsequently affect the entire world. It's not just a tiny little, microcosm conflict.
Right.
It's a global impact issue. And I think a month prior to the invasion, I was kind of watching the chatter on a lot of the like Twitter channels, kind of checking to see what was going on. And like some of the speeches that were coming from the Putin administration were already getting a little iffy. And I was like, something's going to happen. And I don't know what, but something big is going to happen. And I was right. And a lot of us that were watching it were like, sorry, car rolling by. A lot of us that were watching this were kind of
You
like,
could say it's a tanker and arbor personnel
so
carrier.
that was a Lada. That was a Lada.
Lada!
That was a Lada. I have to
We're
say,
going for the authentic here.
Yeah.
you would be, those things are indestructible. Okay. Like
Ladas? Yeah.
I want a borscht pink Lada. That is the goal.
Yeah.
Someday I want one of those things because it is indestructible. They are still going. I'm
That's
sure
so
there's still a
funny.
list somewhere. I'm sure there's still a list in Russia somewhere of who's waiting for their Lada next. I'm sure it
Yeah,
still
I'm
exists.
sure there is.
Right.
But they're alive and well here.
Yeah.
Usually, so, and it's not actually out of the question that a BTR will roll through here or some kind of military vehicle. Like we have to park our ambulance away from this area so that we're not targets, so we don't get hit.
Hmm.
Because
So you're on call on duty right now, right?
yeah, so essentially, like right now, because our infantry is active, like our medevac team is always on duty. So like it's mostly, well, and let me say this, during the day, it's rare for us to do extractions. Like the fact that I had an extraction yesterday during the day is rare. Why? Because the FPVs are so active, you can't extract. So, and how that affects medicine here, you know what? Hang on one second before we get like too far into the weeds. Anyway, what brought me to Ukraine was the
Right.
fact that we're watching, a whole country need to defend democracy and freedom. And that's part of also the core American values as well, is to defend, freedom and democracy. Like, because if we're helping someone else defend theirs, we in turn are also defending our own. Like, at
That's
least
right.
that's how I saw it. That's what drove me and still motivates me every single day. Besides my ethnic background, that's the main driver. Why is it wrong to, help a country defend their freedom and democracy? That's and we're seeing this trend where like
Absolutely.
that is suddenly considered wrong and like weird and like, or you're a Nazi for trying to defend, your freedom anyway. But like that's
According to Putin,
in
at least you are. But
Yeah.
yeah, or certain
Yeah.
crowds that
American
like
presidents.
support the American administration. But like essentially, um, it was then that like I kind of started to I left the NGO I was with and went to other NGOs that were in country because I didn't want to leave anymore. Um, I was like, I can't do this back and forth because I was on a plane probably like 3 times a month, and I was like, I
oh, well.
can't like I want to be
Yeah.
in country. That's where the real
Yeah.
work is. Because I was also getting sick of going to Washington and sitting there and talking to, congressional staff. They were just like, "Oh yeah, it's so bad there. Like, we're so sorry to hear that, and like, come back again and we'll talk about it." And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I can't blame congressional staff. They don't have a lot of power. I get it. It's fine. Like, I mean, we had friendlies, obviously. Like, I did do one, I think, congressional like commission hearing about how NGOs and crowdfunding were helping the war in Ukraine. I think Blumenthal and a couple other ones that were like main Ukraine supporters had put that on. But it was, I wanted to be where I could do the most good. So then I volunteered a little bit further, and then I thought about, it kind of hit me to, I wanted to work as a medic. We didn't have enough medics here. We still don't. And a lot of the medics that are here from beginning of 2022 were literally learning off of YouTube, because you couldn't get TCCC training. It just
Right.
wasn't happening. And then like a lot of the trainers that had come into this country were teaching God knows what and all kinds of weird stuff. And like, we're still trying to undo some of those training scars. But so I sat down, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I got certified in country up to
So
combat paramedic level.
real quick, had you had any medic training before?
No.
Okay. Wow.
Nope. So I went through, career switch.
Yeah.
I went through all the training. It took me about a year, but I got there, and so essentially
Yeah.
I went up to combat level 4 so that's combat paramedics. So we start at the bottom. ASM, all service members, is level 1, and then CLS, or combat lifesaver, is level 2. Combat corpsman or medic is level 3, and then combat paramedic is level 4. So I'm certified at all levels, and then I became a certified instructor because we wanted to make sure that, and I wanted to make sure that I could also teach. So that's what I did. So right after I got certified as a medic, I was hired by the International Center for Tactical Medicine. By hired, I mean I was a free volunteer.
Yeah.
To teach our foreign military who speaks English to do the English language programs for CLS and CMC. So that was the first year, and then I was recruited and I enlisted after that. So that's how the hell I wound up in Ukraine, in a very like meandering fashion, in true autistic ADHD fashion. That is how
it's like almost everybody listening. So that is
pretty much cool. Family. I'm home. Yay. So to kind of, and that's like the long answer, I'd say, is how I got there. So yeah,
it all makes sense. Can I jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
The probably jumping way ahead, but it's the question that most burns in me right now. Can you talk a little bit about how things have changed as you see it since the change of regime here?
Oof.
Like, what do you see? Is the situation on the ground noticeably changed, I guess, since Trump took power?
I think, well, in general, obviously we're kind of limping now in terms of aid and, weaponry and things. Like, now we have to buy it. So now the Ukraine is in the position where they have to buy it as opposed to receiving it. So that's also going to be another burden on an already burdened society. Right. So that's one. The morale change is a little bit more noticeable. You can kind of see the shift towards like Americans and they're not blaming us, but it's like, we're not getting help from the biggest source of help we could possibly get. And it's, the next fear is everyone else going to follow suit? Are they also going to turn their backs on us? Like, is that, that's a tough question. And I think the other thing is the fear, like, what do we do now? Because we need America to win is the arguments that I've heard, and the thing is, the sun's still going to come up. The war's still going to go on. We still have to move forward, but you can see the downshift in morale quite a bit. And now there's like, it's a scramble to like kind of fill the gaps. Like now it's like a race against the clock to like get what we need, deal with the fact that we're not going to have a lot of, support from America, and just keep moving forward. That's the main shift.
But in terms of like the numbers or the pace or severity of
Russia's pushing hard. Oh no, that Russia's pushing hard. Like I think that we're gonna get into the summer offensive pretty quickly, but like we've noticed a huge shift in how many shaheds they're sending. It's everything's increased. They're hitting cities a lot harder now. Kyiv just went through a barrage of shaheds and other missiles that came through. Sorry, there was a cat that was losing its mind over there. I apologize. I'm like right in the. There's a goat over there. There's like walking. I swear to God,
What kind of weapon is that? I hadn't heard that noise.
Yeah.
that is the feline 7000. Okay, it is much more effective than a HIMAR in the right spot.
You could be
So
at serious risk now.
yeah, right. I am in danger. Okay, but like we have a pretty active goat over there. Like if I could show it to you, you'd laugh very hard. Like it's very funny. I can't
Pretty
show it to you
active
though,
goat.
but like it's a very active goat. Yep. But unfortunately he's tethered, so he can't go anywhere. So it's just anyway. No, we've noticed a large shift in how much weaponry they're using. They're definitely throwing more at us. Like that's I think Russia feels emboldened, obviously, and I don't think I know. Like you can see that in the statements they're making, the way that they're sending more artillery at us. They don't want peace. Essentially, this is just all of this is playing right into their hands,
Right.
and so they're kind of throwing everything they've got at us. They're going to try to. I think the next thing is they're going to probably try to take Sumy. There's a couple other spots that I'm looking at. If you watch the map, deep state map, you can see like last year I had been in Pokrovsk to do some medevacs, and the town that I was in is now occupied. Like that's like you're watching this shift here, and like it's you know Ukraine is treading water. Like yes, we're doing our best to win and like keep our land, and that's why it's one of those like really shitty things to listen to where people are like just give up your land and go for peace, and
What
it's like
the hell,
yeah,
right?
sure, let me
Yeah.
just like let's just men died trying to defend that
Yeah.
land. People have lost their homes. Hello, World War II, we are back again and history is repeating itself. But that's fine because you don't like watching it on your TV that you can turn off and you can walk away from. We don't get to walk away from that. This is
Right.
reality for everybody here. So like that's like I think the part that like really grinds everybody's gears is like, yeah, let's just Sir Zelensky just be like, all right, here's half the country. Putin, we're done.
Right. Oh
Okay.
yeah. No, it's kind of like just give up Florida or just give up New Mexico.
And you
Or
try to
or
like
south of the Mason-Dixon line,
Yeah.
if you really want
yeah,
to make
and
it
you
comparable.
exactly. And you try to
Yeah.
tell Americans this and they're just like it like doesn't compute. They're just like, "What? No, I
Yeah.
don't. What do you?" And you're like, "No, no, no. You have to give up your house.
Yeah.
You have to say
Yeah.
bye to your pool. Like, it does not.
Right.
You don't get like, yeah.
And by
I
the
hope
way,
that
that doesn't mean it's going to stop either if they take
Right.
up half the country.
that's the one
Right.
thing I think is adorable, and I'm just like, and that was another Lotta. Hello, Lotta. That was just like it's the same thing. People are like, it'll just stop if you give everything up. No, it won't, because
No,
he's
you
gonna
won't.
want he wants the whole thing. He doesn't just care about half.
Exactly.
He wants the whole fucking country.
Yeah.
It's not just like the piece he's already got. So it's gonna placate him for a little bit, and then Putin's gonna be like, all right, let's get the rest of it, boys. They're
Yeah.
not ready for this anyway. And that's, yeah, that's my whole problem. But there's been a huge shift. There's a lot of like, and nobody feels like it's like kind of the mentality of nobody's coming. It's up to us.
Yeah.
That's the mentality we run off of now.
But all
Yeah.
this means the pace of casualties has also increased, huh?
Oh, definitely. I mean, um, it's noticeable, not just like because they're not going to report a lot of it,
Yeah.
obviously, but like
Yeah.
among my friends, like even on Instagram, like I've seen the emoji that's used when someone dies as a shield. And so I've seen more shields this week than I have in a very long time. And like that's super hard. Like it's tough. And like even some of our neighboring squadrons have lost a lot. We've like one of the other squadrons has taken like 100% casualties, like not
Oh
just
man.
like not kills, but just like casualties. Like
Right.
Yeah.
that's how rough it is. And like you kind of sit there and you're like, man, that fucking sucks. And like
Yeah.
all of our injuries are catastrophic. It's not
Right.
none of it's close quarter combat anymore. You get very small, like small arms injury amounts. Like all of it's just shrapnel and catastrophic injuries from it,
Right.
and FPVs. It sucks.
Yeah. So
So
is it like artillery and drones and things of that nature much more?
it's FPV parties out here. Like it's all FPVs, and they're all dropping the nastiest shit they can possibly drop. There's a couple of them that like drop little mines, like hundreds of them. Like it's creepy as hell, and like they're toe poppers. So like you're definitely gonna lose a foot or two. Like one of my
Toe
first shifts, yeah.
God,
So they look like butterflies, and they're called toe poppers. They will take off half your foot.
no.
They're this big. They're ugly. They're so ugly. Like I've taken a couple basic like EOD classes during basic training, and they show you all the different ways you can blow up a human being. And in the Russians,
Oh,
the way they do it, it's the meanest ways they can think of. They're also gassing out here,
hmm.
Oh wow.
so organophosphates. Yep.
Damn.
So
Yeah, and I
mhm.
mean, just to put this in context, in modern warfare, when you're doing things like toe poppers and others, the goal is not to kill people. The goal is to seriously
No.
injure people, take them off the battlefield, hurt morale, take more people out, and it can just be, you're talking
That's
about
great.
directly how horrible it is.
Well, and so we have there's another one now where like this new nasty thing that they're doing is dropping shaped charges down the side of the bunkers in the trenches so they can get under the roofs they build
Oh,
and then either kill, maim, or injure the guys that are in the bunkers. So it's they're getting nasty and a lot smarter. And it's people like to say that we love making fun of the Russian military that they're dumb as fuck. No, don't underestimate the Russian military. The VDV is nasty. Like all of those people, they are not to be underestimated in any way, shape, or form, because some of the stuff that they come out with is just literally to maim and cause maximum destruction.
yeah, that's
So
nasty.
yeah.
Okay, so this one might be hard to talk about or hard for people to listen to. Give us an average day, week, month for you. What are you doing while you're there? What's your uptime and downtime? What's the kind of shit that you have to go through when you're on duty? What does it look like to be a combat medic in Ukraine right now?
So we have a couple of different categories. I'm not a line medic, so I'm not on the zero. I am in a stab point, or I'm also working medevac shifts. Okay, so essentially, when I'm in a stabilization point, we're getting all of the guys that are coming off the line, and they bring them to us to stabilize them. We're a roll two forward surgical team, and they bring them to us to stabilize them, whatever, give them either blood or freeze dried plasma in order to get them to the hospital so they survive the trip. Medevac is essentially the step right before that. So we are buying the stabilization point even more time. So like that's one of those things. So our shifts, when we're on shift, it's essentially 24 hours, but because we never know when we're going out, but we do sleep in between as much as we can, obviously. Um, like I said, most things happen at night. Extraction or when casualties come into the stab, our working hours are between 2300 and 0700 in the morning. Um,
Jesus.
and that's one of my first shifts. I think my second night we worked from 2300 to like 0630. We had a casualty or casualties every like 30 minutes, just because they were finally able to get them off. Sometimes, and those are the hard ones because like you're exhausted, and depending on the severity. Like I think one of my first shifts we had a
Yeah.
guy that I think they dropped the FPV right by his feet because he came in and like his right leg was a skin flap. There was all of his bones were like obliterated from the blast. The other leg managed to still have some bones, but like the other one was literally just a flap of skin. Like it was terrible. Like it just so that he didn't get to keep his right leg,
Rima,
unfortunately.
for the people in the back, what's an FPV?
An FPV is a nasty little homemade drone that carries any sort of payload of explosive, and they are cheap to make. They can do them in record time and record numbers, and they can carry, depending on their build, however much weight of an explosive, and they drop the explosive device. They have a camera on them usually, and they literally just drop them on soldiers. So they're nasty.
Thanks.
That is what that is. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah. That is an FPV. So I mean,
So how
it's
many people are you typically working with when you're doing the medic side?
so for the stabilization point, it's a
How many people are you
large.
working with when you're doing the medic side?
So usually in the stabilization point, we have a group of at least 10 people, between doctors, anesthesiologists, and like myself. So we have a couple of combat medics, and then we'll have like a couple of like aides. Like they're called nurses, but they're more like just aides. They don't do like a lot of the like IVs, whatever things like stuff that I'm doing. Sorry, another Lotta. Or is that a Neva? Oh no, that's a Lotta. Yeah, that's never mind. So essentially there's that, and then on medevac we have a driver, and then there's two of us on the bus, sometimes three. It just depends. And even from our last shift, the other day, we had a drone spotted our evac, so like we have to find a different evac point because that's not a good thing. And when the BTR rolled up to us, the tires were blown, so they probably ran over a mine. Not the BTR, Humvee. It's a Humvee. Yeah, it's a fun, not so fun time out up in here in the wild west, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the average, like who we work with. And then like I said, it's um technically 24-hour shifts, but the daytime is downtime just because we can't extract during the day. And to give you an idea of what no longer exists, it's called the golden hour. Back in TCCC, we don't have that here. We have the golden 72 hours, or sometimes the golden 36 hours. We cannot extract these guys. Like it can take days before we can get them out and treat them.
Oh,
That's
Damn.
how bad the drone situation is. Like they're going to target our medevacs because Russians don't give a crap if it's medical personnel. They're going to target anybody, civilians, medical, evacs. Like I have a friend who lost his arm and his leg when they dropped a bomb on his evac vehicle that was clearly marked as an evacuation vehicle. It severed his arm, came down through, it peeled the top of the vehicle like a pop can, and it severed his arm and his leg. Like he's lucky to be alive. Like they don't care. Russia will target anything, civilian, military, they don't care. It's maximum destruction.
Yeah.
So,
Have
yeah.
you been in any close calls yourself, or how's it gone for you?
Everything's kind of a close call out here. Like
Yeah.
you're a little bit safer in the western cities, but even that, like the children's hospital that was bombed, was like a mile from my apartment. So like you're not safe anywhere. Like anybody that tries to say, oh, like yeah, okay, it's safer in the western part of Ukraine, but they're still going to target you sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Out here, it's always dangerous. Like when I was at basic training, like we had shaheds that were really damn close to us all the time. Like it was not. They'll just fly over, and you're just not sure, because if you hear it, you have like 30 seconds to get out of wherever you are.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just going to detonate, and you're going to just be a distant memory. Like
Yeah.
it's tough. Like I mean, everything is a close call. Like if it's we have out here, it's very active. There's always like a lot of shaheds, and then there's always a lot of like incoming coming in. So like something's always rattling the walls or the
Yeah.
windows. So
So,
To
so
piggyback, let me follow up on that, Brian,
good.
because the same vein of questioning. My impression, Rima, is like you're there at the front,
yeah.
like the medic staff, like you guys aren't rotating to some rear base and then going forward again, right? Is there, you don't have shifts of like a month in and a month out or anything? Is that
No,
correct,
so
or how?
it's different. It actually, again, and this is, there's nothing uniform in the Ukrainian military. So
Yeah,
across a
yeah,
1,000 kilometers of front line, everybody's got it differently. There are some that are like this. Ours are, it depends. We can do 3-day shifts, 3 days on, 3 days off, or 5 days, or 6 days, or
okay,
longer, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Like it just depends on the brigade and on the squadron and who's running what and how they do their rest shifts. Um, but there are, those that are there all the time, like in the
Yeah.
trenches. Got guys in there for months.
how about you though?
You mentioned an apartment. Do you get to go back, or
Yeah,
when you're off, are
Yes.
you toward the line
Yes.
still?
No, so I rotate in, and it's usually 5 days to 2 week shifts, and then I'll rotate
Okay.
out for 3 to 5 days. And I'm still close to the front. I'm just an hour away. So
Yeah, I
like,
was going to ask where out is. Yeah. So you're not
yeah,
really
well,
ever out.
you're not
Yeah.
ever out. You're
No.
still real. It's still an hour away, but like, it's still like, at least you have like access to more normal food. You have like, frontline towns have tiny little shops with very
Yeah.
little, and you don't exactly have access to a lot of like healthy things.
Yeah.
Everybody here runs on caffeine and hot dogs, so it's kind of like one of those things where it's just,
Yeah.
you're not really nourishing yourself. But specifically like for our medical team, it depends. We do anywhere from 5 days to 2 weeks on, and then we'll do a couple of days off in normal civilization, so to speak. So it's about an hour away. So like right now I'm
It,
like right on top of the line, like close, pretty close, like maybe about 10-15 clicks out. um, and then we go about an hour away usually.
so does the government and military provide anything in the way of food or rations, or are you guys just on your own when you're in the village?
So again, that depends on the squadron. So for us, we get some food is provided, some is not. If we want extra stuff, we get it ourselves. All of my gear is either donated or I purchased it myself. What gets issued is not exactly the greatest quality, and
Yeah.
so that's they just there's not enough money. Like there just isn't. Like I looked at what we got issued and I was like, there's no way I can use this. Um,
Yeah. And
and
when you say gear, you're talking medical supplies to save people here.
Right.
I'm talking about that, but I'm also talking about my helmet, my plate carrier. Like
Armor.
that's,
Yeah.
essentially all. I bought my own ballistic armor. I bought my own, like, and I'm talking because like now, especially with FPVs and shrapnel, you can't just go out there with a plate carrier anymore. You need a groin plate. You need side plates. Okay. You need a neck guard. Like you need all of these things. And it all adds up. You got to have that ballistic armor though, because otherwise, once that shrapnel pierces
You're
that,
fucked. Yeah.
that's it. Yeah. So I mean, like that's
Yeah.
but you have to get that on your own. It's not like the U.S. military where they give you everything because the
Right.
budget, defense spending is huge. No, they're just, and we have to also get all of our own medical supplies. We are asking for donations. Usually I get a lot of stuff donated, like we don't get a lot. It's just not provided by the military. Like I believe the number was 90% of the medical core of the military in Ukraine is dependent for 90% of donations of military medical supplies. It's still, that was a number, I think the figure was from last year. Like we have to get
That's
donations.
insane.
Yeah, I mean, I it's tough, like
Yeah.
otherwise we're purchasing our own medications, we're purchasing our own tourniquets are expensive as fuck, which is why I'm always doing um some sort of fundraiser online, or like, we're getting trying something done. Like the only reason why I stay on Twitter is because I can at least raise some money for
Yeah.
medical supplies. Otherwise I
Oh
hate
yeah.
that platform.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
we don't get a lot of support now.
we'd love to drop some stuff in here if you have like pictures of you geared up or pictures of medical supplies or things.
Yeah, I
Drop
can
some
send it
stuff
to
in,
you.
and what we you sent me some donation information. We'll pop it at the end
We'll
of
definitely post all
the
that.
podcast. Yeah, and see if
Yeah, I'll
anybody
send you
wants to
some of
help
that.
out and can get them.
Yeah, no worries. I will definitely send you some of that.
I've seen one or two pictures of you in gear, and it's like it's. I don't want to say impressive because it's the wrong kind of impressive.
I know. It's very funny. I think a lot of people, like, especially from back home, are just kind of like, "Who is she? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, what radicalized you? Empathy? Like that."
Right.
Yeah. Right. So Brian asked about the typical. Um, can you share an atypical, like either the, I don't know, the something that stands out, I don't know, a situation that you're not going to forget, like 20 years from now, the thing that's going to like,
My first medevac will always sit in my mind just because of, the adrenaline rush. It's always part
Mm.
of it. When you've got somebody who's, sick right in front of you, that's just like, help me, like that's, you got to help them. And like, particularly this one had a pretty good concussion. So he was puking everywhere, trying to get an IV in a guy when we're driving 75 miles an hour so we can avoid getting hit by something like an FPV from Russia. Like that is hard. That is like running life on expert mode. But you got to get this guy something for his nausea because he's just going to keep puking on you, stuff like that. That will always stick in my mind. The second thing will be from working at the stabilization point where we had a guy come in um, and had a giant golf ball size hole in his shoulder. And then in addition, this part of his face was gone right here.
Mm.
His jaw was just gone. And like you could see like the tongue muscles working. You could see,
Oh,
Yeah,
hang on one second. I'm getting some feedback on my, there we go. Don't know what that was. Sorry about that,
no
guys.
problem. We're,
Um,
we're, we're just leaving the blurs in because, you're in a damn war zone.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
No, that's good. That I appreciate that very much. Okay. So his face was, and he looked like he was in a daze. And so like myself, we had one doctor's working on his face. Myself and another surgeon are working on the golf ball sized hole in his arm. Now this hole is like right here at the almost at the top of his shoulder. And this is where a high and tight tourniquet would go. So whoever brought him in, they tourniqueted over the wound and then another one underneath it, which was ineffective already. But his arm was
Right.
pulseless and blue, and it was just I don't know if he got to keep that arm. We'll put it that way. But he's conscious, and the
oh,
whole time he's just looking at me, like just he's just watching me, trying to like I think he was just looking for reassurance, and I was just like, keep smiling, do not look like overly happy, just try to reassure the guy. And he's Ukrainian, so he doesn't speak English, right? So I'm not talking to him, but I'm just trying to make eye contact at him and just kind of like reassure him in some way that like he's okay and like he's gonna be okay. Um, but it's just like the look on his face. It was one of those things that I don't think I'll ever forget that. And it was the same thing with the previous casualty that I told you about, where he came in with like a skin flap for a foot. Like he's conscious because the anesthesiologists are doing regional blocks of anesthesia so that like he's not feeling any pain in the lower half of his body, where we're essentially like cutting off the flap of skin that was his leg. And so I'm just checking on his IV port, and he's looking at me, and I said something in English to one of the nurses, and he says hi. And I just looked at him. I said, "Hi, my name is Rima." And he looked at me and said, "My name is Alexander." And he held my hand. And I was like, never going
Right.
to forget that until the day I die. Like that's, yeah. Those are things I'll never forget. It's kind of how like you made the right decision in life. Like I I know like a lot of people, especially people back home or like, anybody that's kind of heard my story or just kind of like, you're in your 30s. What are you doing? Blah, blah. And I was sitting there going, I am right where I'm supposed to be. It may not be something that you understand, but I am right where I'm supposed to be. And that's like every time I'm at work or every time I do this job, I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in life. Sometimes it just takes you longer to get there.
I mean, we talked a lot about human rights violations and conflict, and I deal with it secondhand all the time, and I know a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people. But you're right in the middle of it. Does it? I'll ask the question people ask me, but worse for you, I take it. Are there days it just gets overwhelming? Are there times when you just need to mentally step out and can't handle it, or do you not have the luxury of being able to do that?
It depends on the circumstance. And, I've certainly had the stress response before. I had, there was one day where I had to step out of the stabilization point because I just was like overwhelmed because I was like overheating and there was a lot going on. And it's okay. You're in a war zone. This is a natural response, that, we can't just sit there and like tough it out all the time. And like, I'm definitely guilty of this. So, I'm the pot meat kettle.
Yeah.
But, you know, it does get overwhelming, but I also have a tendency to tunnel vision a lot of things and just kind of like push through it because one, I'm learning, two, this I'm like soak it all in for your students because I'm an educator in the same vein, being an instructor. So it's like I need to take all of this back to my students. I can't give myself the time for a stress response. Problem is when you bottle and you push it down, your body's going to go,
Of
really? Well,
course.
now's the time at the most.
Yeah.
So it
Right.
was 4 a.m. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and we had a casualty come in. He had a pretty decent sized hole in his leg, and like the tourniquet was hurting him and stuff. And like I'm working on this casualty with the surgeon that I work with, and I just started to get really like warm, and I'm like, I wonder if it's just warm in here, like because we keep it warm for hypothermia stuff, and like I was just like, all right, maybe it's just warm in here. I take off my hoodie and it just gets worse and I start getting dizzy and I was like, nope, this isn't good. Something's not right here. Something's not right in the neighborhood. So I grab an alcohol pad and I go outside because the trick for nausea with an alcohol pad is it's the fumes from the rubbing alcohol that stave off the need to vomit. There's a study on this. I am not crazy.
Okay.
And it works. It works. The next time you feel really nauseous, grab an alcohol pad and
Huh.
just smell it. You'll feel better. But I sit down and I'm just dizzy as hell. And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Maybe it's an inner ear thing, but it could have absolutely been a stress response. And in that moment, you can't tough it out when your body's like forcing you to sit down. Like
Yeah.
you have to just like say, okay, you win this round. Physiology
Right.
wins this round. I just have to sit down and go, all right, cool. But yeah, it does get over. I think what overwhelms me more is just like all the destruction and like the physical injuries, the soldiers, like looking at them, they're rolling in. Like some of these guys are losing their arms, their legs, their eyes, their hands. Like, and I'm like, for what? For what?
Right.
Like,
For
Right.
what?
why? Why? Like, for to what end? Like, why do like I've lost friends here? I had, I think the most painful experience it was my first. I lost my first friend when it was I think August of 23, and that was a really overwhelmingly difficult experience. And I've lost a couple more since then, but two of my close friends were killed in January in Pokrovsk, and like
Damn.
these were guys that I started
Sorry.
with like medicine stuff. And one of them was an American guy named Bobby. I miss them both every day.
Yeah.
And Bobby was like 22, like he was,
Oh, damn.
and so like like that's the hard part to live with is like the amount of people that die for no reason because somebody woke up one day and was like, I'm going to take this country, even though it
Right.
doesn't belong to me. It's not mine, but I'm going to take it. And it doesn't matter what happens. And everybody's
So
just,
fucked up.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Just
not,
don't give a damn about human beings. They're just tools.
no, exactly. It's
Yeah.
not, they don't value human life. Look at the way Russia treats their own soldiers. They do not
Yeah.
give a
They
shit
don't give a
about
shit.
them.
Right.
No, not even close. And that's like the
No.
scariest part about these people is they don't care.
They don't
Just
care.
they'll walk right into anything, and like just some of the horrifying footage we've seen about them executing POWs and like the
Disgusting. Yeah.
there was like a recent video of like a drone circling a Russian soldier and like
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
were like, oh my god, the inhumanity, and I'm like, are you serious? Nothing even happened to the guy.
Right.
And
Right.
have you not
Yeah.
seen all of the footage of Ukrainian POWs being
God.
barely
Yeah.
executed or like, and I went on, there's a pretty decent sized following that this guy Kagan Dunlap has. He's like former military, I think. And he
Hmm.
posted it and he posted this really dumb commentary like about it too. And like, I think we've all had enough. And I'm like,
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I think we can all say enough is enough. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Really. Yeah.
Thank you for your sentiment. That's really nice.
Yeah.
that's
Do you?
so.
Are there a lot of Americans there, or foreigners in general? Like how?
There's a good
How?
amount of us. There's a good amount of us, not as many as there were in 22. Like there were a
Uh,
lot more in 22, but now it's kind of whittled down quite a bit. But there are more than you think. Australians, New Zealanders, a lot of Brits. We've got a lot of guys from the French Foreign Legion that are here, Colombians, other Latin American countries, Brazil, Americans, Canadians. There's a bunch of us here. A lot of
and
fun.
all people who just individually volunteered like you did.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. And I heard a lot about that in the first months, and I haven't heard
Yeah.
much about it recently. I assume some of it's still going on, but the war's also not getting much coverage anymore
Right.
in any
Oh
meaningful.
no, it's almost taboo now because of the administration. So like, you
Yeah.
can't really talk about the war anymore. Like that's, it's not fashionable to talk about. Um and that's very problematic in my opinion. We just kind of sit there and we're ignoring something that is super important and I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to really understand that.
Although good news the last couple of days, Trump seems to think for about the past 72 hours that Putin's evil. So we'll see how long that one lasts. But
Yeah, that's always very funny. I think he got played and he can't deal with it. That's really what it
Do you
is.
get a sense that, like, obviously, as long as the United States of America remains as fucked up as it is, Ukraine's hope lies with Europe. is the sentiment, yeah, that's where the hope is, and there's not much hope there just because of capacity, lack of ability to provide what the U.S. can, or is there genuine hope that Europe can step up?
I think there's hope that Europe can and will step up, and it should, just because, Lithuania is now having
Yeah, yeah,
calls and
yeah,
meetings
Oh
about
yeah.
possible invasion.
yeah,
That's where we're at this point, and that's the really fucking scary, because we're sitting there
yeah,
going, awesome, we are now at this really, really terrifying part where everybody's now starting to have meetings about, possible invasion. That's not good. That's a very bad sign.
yep,
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the idea. But yeah, I mean, right now we're just kind of like, we get up and we have to do it anyway. The war is still going on,
yeah,
whether we get that
Yeah.
support or not. And so we still get up every day, but that's the hard part. I might have to go plug in my laptop. It's about to die. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to plaster myself real quick here.
Yeah, we'll go as long as you can.
Oh, I'm good. I just have to change locations here because
Yeah.
yeah, my computer's gonna
So
die.
tell us why you're plastering yourself. We talked about this before we started taping.
So I cannot give you or any sort of sign of where my location is, because unfortunately Russia watches everything, and that would
yeah,
put my whole team in danger, including also where the area of where we're working, including where our soldiers are at. So I have to take every precaution possible, in order to not give away that position. It's really important. So I am just switching over, and we will be fine after that. I just have to
No
get.
problem. No, and this is another one of those things that, how many people think about the fact that you have to be that careful. It's
yeah.
insane.
I
Oh,
want to make clear too the question I asked, like your answer, Rima. Those Australians and French Foreign Legion and other volunteers, they're not all medics, right? Like, we're talking combat
no,
folks, right?
they're infantry. Yeah, they're infantry, not
Yeah,
just medics. Yeah,
yeah,
100% correct.
Yeah.
Um,
If you get a picture of the goat, we'll take it.
yeah,
oh,
or the
that's
cat.
no problem.
I
Well, the animals of Ukraine are kind of like my job to save them. So, like, I just saved two puppies last week.
was just going
And
to
I,
ask, huh?
yeah, so one of the surgeons and me found
You're
like,
getting a little dim, by the way. If you speak up a little bit or get closer to the mic,
give me
because
one.
the puppies are very cute. I saw them on social media. So you see a lot of animals there. Are we talking farmyard, or what's the situation?
Oh no, it's just there's a lot of like dogs and cats that just kind of free roam because they don't like there's not enough people either to take care of them, or that just like the population just gets like pretty crazy. Just there's not enough to like help the animal population be more controlled. So that's the only problem there.
Actually, where you're at, is the civilian population entirely evacuated, or are
No.
residents still there?
Oh no, they're still there. And that happens in a lot of frontline towns. A lot of the frontline towns are still here. Um,
Ugh.
and like there's kids around here. It's crazy to me. All right, let's see if I can get my camera going here again. Um,
Cool.
but
Did you just duct
so
tape us?
did I just duct tape you? Yes. Actually, I used a band-aid, which is very true to form here.
All right.
Right, this is our student's dream come true. We've been duct taped.
Yep. This is my
Excellent.
security picture.
I should make a rip off the Band-Aid joke. Oh, I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
Literally just ripped off the band-aid. Yep,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, no, you can follow Rimma on all sorts of social media, but the two puppies that you rescued are insanely cute. And if they weren't half a world away, I'd think about adopting.
Yeah, that's one thing we've been trying to do is get like, it's funny because people are like, "Oh, like we want to adopt them or whatever." I'm like, "Well, we can get the paperwork going if you really if you really want to. We could do it."
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
but no, it happens a lot. Like these two were abandoned by us, or not by us, by our stabilization point. Um and it was a problem because one of them had a huge abscess on her face, and it was like pretty like
Oh,
infected, and so like the surgeon was like trying to help, and like I was just like, we can't help them. So I took her straight to the vet, and her sister. So hopefully they're going to get adopted though soon. That's like kind of
That's good.
the hope here. But
Yeah.
we rescue a
it's
lot of
like
animals.
the perennial story in every combat zone is um, soldiers' affection for the random animal that strolls by. Read about those stories from World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea. Like everything I've read about war, combat anyway. Like somehow that just the lone animal at risk resonates with everyone, and people's affection pours out. Um,
Oh yeah,
Mostly
totally.
the same. Hey,
Yeah.
Rima, have any of those extractions, have you or your colleagues, comrades, found yourselves evacuating and treating Russian soldiers?
So it was this actually is a good question. So it happened off shift. When I was off shift, my partner was my ambulance partner was working at the stabilization point, and we did have some Russian POWs come in. Now they are blindfolded,
Yeah.
and they are treated. So like that's they are definitely treated way better than they deserve, and way better than they would treat any of us because they would shoot us on sight. Um, but we did treat them well. My partner and the stab point treated them. They were given their humane treatment and they were sent on their way. So it's
Sent on their way to a POW area, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So it's a hard one for me, since I haven't really gotten to that point yet, or like haven't been in that situation. I wonder sometimes how I'll deal with it, but we got to do what we have to do, and we have to do what's better than what they do. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I decide to do it. It's just like if
Although they're pawns doing awful things,
yeah.
there's most of them are still pawns, right? Um,
I don't know. I feel like the brainwashing is pretty
for sure.
deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
For
that's my
sure.
one problem. Like, it's my problem when people try to give like conscripts a free pass. I'm like, I don't know because I feel like that brainwashing is runs deep within every
Oh
single
yeah,
person.
for
Well, and
sure.
this is kind of the ultimate moral quandary that hits the reality of the situation. They're wounded humans and they should be treated that way, but practically they were just trying or actually killing people that and you can only assume how hard that is, or only kind think about how hard that is. You'd have to
Yeah,
be in the situation.
it's not and that's like I said, I haven't been confronted with that situation yet, but like as a medic, I'll do the task that is put in front of me, but it's like I have to do it quick and get them out of my sight because I can't
Yeah.
I can't deal with it. I think about all my friends that I've lost here and like everybody else that's
Yeah.
lost people here, and it's like
That's insane.
the anger just like, and I have to separate my emotions, and I just
Yeah.
have to like kind of ignore how like what all that like bubbling rage and just kind of like. But again, I haven't been confronted with that situation yet. Is it out of the realm of possibility? No, it's
No.
there for sure.
I want to back up for a second and go to the training side, which is one of the big things you do. And I've followed a lot of that online too. It sounds like you're getting pretty experienced compared to people there. Two things. The first is I was thinking when you were talking about the guy with the golf ball sized hole in the surgery, are you doing things that legitimately doctors should be doing and there aren't enough? Or are there usually doctors with you who are handling the high end stuff?
Oh no, we have surgeons that do
Okay.
all of that stuff. Like I'm just assisting with either I can do sutures, I will pack wounds, that's within my scope. I am not doing any sort of surgical procedures
Got
like
it.
outside of what is in my scope of practice as a combat
Got it.
paramedic. Um, are there Ukrainians who have to do that? Yes, because we
Yeah.
don't have in certain places enough doctors. And that's just unfortunately the name of the game. We've got people with absolutely no certifications because they're Ukrainian and haven't been able to train. They learned in the trenches.
Hmm. Yeah. How
There's
much time do you spend doing training now? Training other
uh,
people?
a little bit at the moment. We have new people coming in, so I'll be training them. But like right now, when I'm on rotation, it's harder to train people just because we're all here just working. But like I go through all of my books, my repetition all the time because like you can't. These skills are
Yeah.
perishable. And one of the things I
Yeah.
love about teaching is I'll just get hands on, like in the labs with my students. Like I do all of the skills labs with my students. Every time that we do like any sort of tactile work, I'm also doing it because that is a great way to get your reps in. Um,
But that's
And
happening when you're rotated away from the front, right?
yeah, that's so like when I was teaching for the last 8 months, I was teaching at the International Center for Tactical Medicine. And I was not enlisted at that point. And then once I enlisted, I still am one of the listed trainers with my squadron. So I will be training our new people. And like once I
Okay.
get off rotation, I'll go back and teach on my off time just because there's not a lot of foreign language instructors. So, like, for our foreign language soldiers, we need to have somebody that can teach in English. I've actually taught a lot of different, groups of people. I had one group from Brazil. They were like one of them spoke maybe a little bit of English and everybody
Oh,
else
jeez.
spoke Portuguese. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. And like they did great, but like it was definitely a huge challenge for sure.
Yeah.
How's your Ukrainian?
It's so. Like I mean, I probably should spend more time learning more of it. I know the alphabet. I can read a lot. It's just the sentence structure that's kind of crap for
Yeah.
me at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we close out, I mentioned we're going to put up some links. Just kind of run through a litany. What's the stuff that you need donated that you just don't have because you're not supplied the way any reasonable medic should be?
So we always need tourniquets. We run through tourniquets like water. And I'm talking about Cat
Jesus.
sevens. I'm not talking about soft teas. Well, we will take soft teas, but Cat 7 is the standard out here. It's what we train on. We're not going to take any fake Chinese crap that people keep trying to fucking donate. And I'm going to get on a soapbox for a second because you'd be amazed that 3 years in, people are still sending me fake Chinese tourniquets. And they're like, well, it's just as good as the other. Somebody said recently, they're like, oh, this tourniquet is Cat 7 rated because it has a metal windlass. And I'm like, what? The Cat 7 doesn't even have a metal rod. What are you talking about? And I was like, you can't rate a tourniquet based on another tourniquet. That's not how that works. And we have a guideline. The TCCC Commission has a guideline on what is approved by the committee in terms of medical supplies. And I know that people want to stretch their dollar further. I know that we know we're having a pretty shit time with the economy. I get that. But when you donate a fake tourniquet, you are essentially signing a death warrant for a soldier
Yeah.
because that thing will fail. It's not if, or it is a guarantee. It's going to rip in the fabric. If the windlass fails, that is the main component of a tourniquet that stops the bleeding. It's not the strap, it's the windlass. And I have a hard time educating the outside world on this. I write a blog on my Buy Me a Coffee about um, tactical medicine, and I try to frame it in such a way that the person who knows nothing about tactical medicine will understand why we don't want fake cat tourniquets, why we don't want fake hemostatic gauze, because
Yeah.
hemostatic gauze is treated with a chemical that stops bleeding 3 to 5
Yeah.
times faster than regular gauze. But people, I had someone send me a generic package that said just it was black. All it said was hemostatic gauze. It was $20 and it was literally just regular gauze. I ran a test, I filmed everything, and I'm like, guys, focus. Like you can't just because it's cheaper doesn't mean like I'm like you paid $20 for something that's essentially $4.99 on North American Rescue. Like that's we have a huge problem with that. So, but to answer that, it's Cat 7 tourniquets, hemostatic gauze, all of the consumables. Really, I mean, that's our main supply. We're always going to need trauma bandages. Like anything that stops massive hemorrhage, because that's our first and foremost biggest issue is massive hemorrhage. So like your tourniquets, your hemostatic gauze, your regular gauze, that is the main component. The other things that come into play then we're talking about your airway components, which is like a tube that you put down the nose. It's called an NPA. Those are always important. We need just chest seals, although there's a debate in this is going to get nerdy about chest seals efficacy and like the TACMED, whatever. I ignore all that shit. We use it anyway.
You've been nerdy for about the past 5 minutes, but we'll keep up.
I could
Yeah.
get worse. Okay, I was just how bad this can get. So before you,
Medical nerdy.
yeah,
Yeah.
So two things. First of all, people, if you're donating, please don't be cheap when you're helping to save people's
Yeah.
lives. And second, this is always amazing to me. I would never have thought, other than the fact that I follow you online, I never would have thought of how important this stuff is
Yeah.
to a war effort. It's just not something, that even if you've got some expertise in the area, this stuff just never comes up, but it's really critical. When soldiers get hurt, this is what saves them. And sometimes
Yep.
it's something that somebody donated that's needed.
Well, and like we're so used to Western militaries that are provided everything they need. And it's not like, there we never question it. And then we come up on this where you have to stand up an army with like 5 minutes to spare essentially, and there's
Yeah.
no resources. Like tourniquets weren't here in 2022. Like that's
Yeah.
Right.
started bringing them in by the boatload once like people figured out they needed them. And like again, a cat tourniquet is about 35 US dollars, and sometimes North American Rescue runs a sale, so like everybody should be watching for that. But like it's, you can't cheap out on it, and we need, like, we always need them in quantity. Like that's, there's never a situation. And I make IFACs for soldiers all the time because the ones that get issued are not great. They have cheap tourniquets in them, they have cheap consumables in them, and it's like, and I've tried to frame this in a certain way with people. I'm like, do you, how much is a life only worth $12 to you so you can
Right.
get a cheaper tourniquet, or do you feel like $35 is okay for a human life? Like, don't buy Starbucks this week. Like that's, I mean, and that's how I frame it, because I'm sitting here going, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad you want your like $5 coffee that tastes like burnt beans, but like, try not to do it and just get a couple cat tourniquets.
Yeah.
It's not hard. But yeah,
Joel, on that note, do you want the last question?
Yeah. And my last question, Rima, is not going to be a question. Um,
oh boy.
it's a few things. Number one, uh, in my mind and my heart, you're the living embodiment of a hero. You're, I don't have words. Um, I hope you take care of yourself. You know what I mean by that? When you get out of there, that you take care of yourself, what you've seen and experienced. You've got a huge heart. Take care of that thing. I have people all over that country who I care about deeply and love. Uh, and you're there trying to take care of them too.
It's a hard situation that we're in. Like it's not, and I think like there's a lot of negative coming in right now, but like I always tell myself like focus on the good. Like
Yeah.
don't let any of this harden your heart, because like you can't. Like you have to like find a positive every day, like at least to do something. And like it's super important to take care of yourself. Like, I journal a lot. That helps. I try to talk to my friends. We do as much as we can to kind of like keep things going. And like sometimes I wonder, I'm like, my life before was, it's like feels like 10 lifetimes ago. And like you kind of sit here and, but it's
Yeah. Of
somebody, I get asked a lot, would you do it again? And I'm like, in a heartbeat.
course you would. Yeah.
I would do it again, and I would do it again and again. I regret nothing. I walked away from a very comfortable life back home, and I have no regrets because I am where
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
supposed to be.
Yeah.
every time I hear Heroyam Slava, I'm going to think of you. So, on behalf of the people I love, thank you.
I'm gonna end on a little less emotional note, but a very personal note. I think you've heard me say before, probably when you were a college student, that to me, I succeed as a professor when one of my students actually goes out and does immense amounts of good, and you have taken the bar so
Beyond.
freaking high. So thank you
Well,
incredibly
Uh,
much for what you're doing.
Brian, I will tell you, you were always one of my most influential professors on my life, and a good friend that, like, I took a lot of inspiration from you. All of my interest in political science stemmed from your classes, and it just kind of like snowballed from there. So, like,
Thank
that's right back at you, buddy. Like,
you.
like,
Okay, we can end on that note.
thank you so much.
I thank you guys.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Please share information about this episode to people. I think everyone needs to hear from Rima and about what's happening and what is needed. So please like and share. Thanks, David, for producing this, and we'll see you next time.
Love and stay safe.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.